The terrain surrounding the north gate is simply unsuitable for actually having a gate. So instead, given where I've built the Industriville River, I felt that an artificial lake and dam would be more appropriate. Of course, the process of building the dam actually starts with the construction of the artificial lake, and to do that I had to A, mark out where the edge of the lake is going to be, and B, actually build up the bottom of the lake, which does involve clearing out the land above the bottom. Of course, a third aspect of this is to identify where the front of the lake is. That is to say, where the lake ends and the dam proper begins. Of course, clearing land is not the fastest of prospects. On the other hand, it does give me access to some good resources, especially some of the rarer types of stone. Particularly, as you can see here, granite and diorite. So we did also get a little bit of coal out of it as well. As you can see, we're starting to round off the bottom of the artificial lake. And in fact, we are very near the bottom of the artificial lake. Now, of course, there's no water in the lake as of yet. That will come later. But at least we've got the site for the lake sorted out. And now that I've got the lake sorted out, it's time to clear out some land for the dam itself. And because of the terrain, the dam is going to be, or at least the working portion of the dam is going to be a bit narrower than the actual lake. And also, if memory serves me right, a bit of an offset as well. And now that I've figured out where the dam's going to go, I've opted to place concrete, that is to say smelted gravel, as the front face of the dam. This will provide me a bit of visual interest, as well as allowing me a stone-like building material that isn't stone. With stone, if you misplace it, you get cobblestone back, and you have to resmelt it to get back your stone. Whereas with concrete, you break it, you get back your concrete. And at this point, I've cleared out most of the space on the interior of the dam itself. And now I'm just doing some last clearing so that I can place the bottom of the dam. Also managed to get a bit of coal out of this. And yes, that is a cobblestone stairway that I am using as a temporary scaffolding to get up and down. I've also opted to lay down 3 additional lines of cobblestone. Those are going to mark the principal water channels for the water wheels that will go in the dam. After all, the whole purpose of this dam is to generate power by means of flowing water. And since I have 6 water wheels, that means 6 channels that I need to use for the water. And now that we have the entire bottom of the dam sorted out, it's time to build up a little bit in the middle to support the water wheels, as well as building out the tops of the channels so that I can channel the water from the reservoir into the dam and down towards the lower section. And I'm leaving holes so that water can get from the reservoir into the dam structure itself. All right, and now it's time to place the actual water wheels. There are 6 of them. 4 of them were placed easily enough. The other 2 a little bit trickier, but not dramatically so. And now it's time to actually fill up the reservoir with water. And unfortunately, I'm going to discover a little bit of a problem in the process of filling up the reservoir. Namely, that the channels leading into the dam are a little bit too high. Water will not flow into them from the reservoir. And, well, I have to use a little bit of trickery to actually make the water flow properly and start triggering the water wheels, only to discover that they're turning the wrong direction. But of course, that's not my biggest concern at this point. I also have to worry about power. But a little bit of fix with the channeling allows me to get the water wheels flowing in the correct direction. I also make sure I have a spillway so that the water actually flows into the lower section of the channel. And now it's time to actually start building the rest of the dam facing. And of course there is one additional complication, namely that I have to figure out how I'm going to get the power from the water turbines inside the dam to the outside of the dam and into the city of Industriville itself. Unfortunately, I didn't plan this out thoroughly at first, so I kind of had to wing it a bit here. And as a consequence, it wasn't the most elegant solution, and it did take a few attempts to actually pull it off. Eventually, however, I was able to figure out a way to get the power out of the dam and into the city of Industriville. And yes, that was one of the problems I ran into. Those wall mountings weren't exactly the easiest to work with. But at any rate, I've now got the dam up as high as I need it. It's actually a little bit above the level of the water in the reservoir. So, it's time to put the top on the dam. Of course, the wires have been run. I need to reshape the land a little bit so that mobs don't come sneaking onto the dam itself. A little bit of lighting on the front face of the dam prevents it from becoming a mob farm. And finally, I've actually figured out how to get the power into the city of Industriville. It wasn't the fastest process, but it did the job. And we now have power in the city of Industriville. It may not be the most impressive amount of power, but it should be more than enough to at least get some things done in Industriville. After finishing the main structural portion of the dam, I noticed that it didn't quite span the entire width of the valley. Thankfully, it wasn't too hard to fix. You just need to extend the front face a few blocks, and voila! The dam now extends the entire width of the valley. The power we've prepared earlier has allowed us the opportunity to better handle the ores and whatnot that we've obtained so far. But that requires a facility. So it's time to build a factory. I've opted for fairly thick columns at the water's edge. The main door is going to be on the upper level, and that's a function of the road being where it is. I opted to start off by sorting out where the lower level is going to be. The lower level is also going to be the factory floor, and it will cover a not insubstantial area, much of which needs to be cleared out. Now I'm connecting the columns to the floor, The southwestern column needed to be brought down another block. It just didn't look right from below. But now it's time to start clearing out the land, making sure there's room underneath it. I'm also opting to place stone brick slabs underneath the factory floor. Of course, that does mean having to touch that lake that's there. It happens to be at the same level that the stone brick slabs need to be at. And of course, there's also quite a bit of ground clearance to do. Although at this point, I'm focusing more on making sure I have a respectable lake underneath the factory floor. In the event that I need water later on, I'm pretty sure I will need water. But now it's time to start clearing out the hill that is now in my way. The most critical tools available to me for this task will be the excavator and the hammer. They will be very useful indeed for clearing out this hill. And as you can see, the top portion is already cleared away. Of course, the dirt's going a bit faster than the stone, just because the excavator is that much faster than the hammer, and also because the dirt is that much softer than the stone. And now that I've got the area around the back wall more or less cleared out, I start the process of clearing out the front section of the hill. This also gets rid of the last of the dirt that's in my way. And of course, laying down the subfloor where I can, before finishing the process of cleaning up the worksite. And now that I have the entire subfloor laid, I can finish laying down the floor proper. And I'm opting for simple oak wood planks for this. It's just a matter of simplicity. I don't want to overcomplicate it. The walls I will complicate a bit. I've opted for a particular style of stone brick for the upper section of the wall. But I didn't start this with a clear idea of what I'm going to do for the baseboard. My first thoughts were to do some granite or some limestone, but neither of those really worked well. Even the diorite looked off. So after another look through the storehouse, I found something that I finally decided would work, and that is basalt brick. It makes, I think, a very nice contrast, separating the floor from the walls. Very useful. Now, I'm also building up the water-facing columns. These are the west wall columns. And after sorting out the torches, I will adjust the lighting a couple of times before the factory is actually finished. Just because I'm relying on the floor for the torches at the time being. That's a function of there not being adequate wall space for the torches. But now that I've got the east wall of the factory floor, I elected before taking care of the north wall to build up the second floor, the upper floor walkway. This will, of course, be where I enter and exit the factory. But now that I've got the walkway in place, it's time to build up the north wall. And I'm opting for a design consisting of granite pillars and thickened glass windows. And I'm going very heavy on the windows. I want this factory to be light and airy, at least to the extent that it can be. And then, of course, there's the stone bricks that mark off where the second floor is. And now I am placing a staircase that will allow me to get between the upper walkway and the factory floor. And I'm also readjusting the lighting in light of the staircase and its supports. And now I'm working on the area behind the staircase. I did manage to get that section of the west wall. And now the west wall in the sector of the staircase is going to be solid. It's just a function of it not being a suitable place for windows. Now here's the rest of the west wall. Windows where I can. Solid wall behind the main columns, just because I don't want a window looking in on those columns. And now I'm building the wall on the other side of the staircase. I am using the same material as the solid walls for the section hidden by the stairs, and the thickened glass for windows. And now it's time for the south wall. The section hidden by the hill is solid. The rest of it is the thickened glass. And now that the factory floor itself is finished, it is time to actually work on the walkway as well as the storage control room. And what I've done with the storage control room is I've got 3 blocks, and then I've got a place for chests to go, and then I've laid out 2 blocks behind the chests for piping to go through to connect the chests to the factory floor and to the machinery that will eventually be placed on the factory floor. And now that I have the layout here, it's time to actually build up the walls, the outer walls. I'm starting with the west and north walls, and those are going to be very window heavy. The east wall is going to be solid, just as it is on the factory floor. And the south wall is going to be much the same as the floor below, except that the section that was obstructed by the hill on the factory floor is not obstructed on this floor, so I could put a window there. And now I've opted to place stone bricks to mark out where the edge of the walls is, where the walls stop and the roof begins. Now I'm placing an interior wall on the storeroom and sorting out the windows for the staircase. And now that I've got the interior sorted out, it will be time for the roof. And I'm opting to do something a little bit different than what I've done so far. And admittedly, part of it was experimental. That is to say, I'm basically dividing the roof into 2 parts. So I'm placing some andesite pillars to mark out the edge of the eastern section of the roof, which I built flat. Later on, I realized that I had a problem with this section of the roof. It didn't look right with the slope leading up to the clerestory that I'm in the process of building now. So I wound up taking the eastern half of that, dropping it down 1 block. But now it's time to build the western section of the roof. I've opted to start with a lower section before building up the clerestory windows. Those should provide a little bit more lighting. And now I'm building up the second tier of that section of the roof. And now to peek off the clerestory and finish off the roof.